right, good morning, Life Church. Please rise and join us in worship. Saved us, and by his love we are set free. And this morning I hope that you rejoice in the good grace of God with us today.
Children Swing wide, all you heavens. Let the praise go up as the walls come down. All creation, everything with breath, repeat the sound. All His children, clean hands, pure hearts, good grace, good God. His name is Jesus. Swing wide, all you heavens. Let the praise go up as the walls come down. All creation, everything with breath, repeat the sound. All His children, clean hands, pure hearts, good grace, good God. His name is Jesus. Come on, swing wide, let's go. Swing wide, all you heavens. Let the praise go up as the walls come down. All creation, everything with breath, repeat the sound. All His children, clean hands, pure hearts, good grace, good God. His name is Jesus.
Good morning, everyone. I am so excited to be here today. I missed all of you so much not having service last week, and I am so happy to be here. I'm so happy to get to worship with you. I hope that you're really excited to be here today, but just in case you need a little encouraging in that, how about we give a gigantic happy birthday clap to my two friends? Can we do that? So I like to be excited at church. I hope you're excited to be here too. If we haven't met yet, my name is Carissa, and I just want to welcome all of you here. Like I said, I'm excited to be here, and I'm so excited to get to worship with you today. We're also so thankful for all of our friends that watch on Facebook Live and also on YouTube, and we really want to encourage you to interact with us, comment, say hello. We love to hear that you're there and be able to talk with you. So don't forget to share and invite and leave us some comments. So we have a phone number that you can text. So you can text the word welcome to this number up here. That's going to help you get connected in with us. It's also how we send out info to the church. So if you want to keep updated, make sure to send a quick text. We promise that it's not too overwhelming or too much, but then you can get connected in with us. So at Life Church, we want you to know that there is a place for you and there is a part that you can play here. And we just really want to encourage everyone into serving and to giving. And we just really want you to know that you have a part here and that you are important here. And so Pastor Jason is going to talk a little about that today. And so we just hope that you're really encouraged to find your part here at Life Church. So we also also want you to know that your giving really matters. It matters in this ministry, but it also matters in this community. And so we have several ways that you can give. You can give through the buckets. We have one at each door. And we leave those there all through service so that you can give at any time. But we also have a link in the description of our Facebook video. And then you can also give through the Life Church app. It's very quick and easy. And we just want you to know that that really matters. So today, we have a couple more songs, and they are going to be our original songs. Guys, I love these songs so much. It brings me so much joy and encouragement to get to sing these original songs when I worship the Lord. And so I hope that you are becoming familiar with these songs and that they can uplift and encourage your heart too. So go ahead and stand back up as we head into these next songs, and we can spend some time worshiping together.
There is a banner flying over me.
is awesome. I hope you guys get encouragement from that. I know that it is such a great reminder to have in your heart that God always has the victory over our lives. No matter what you're going through, no matter what you're facing or what you have been through, we know that our past is held in the hands of the Father. So this morning, I hope that you find encouragement in God's love.
For so long I couldn't see a veil between you and me. Of all my doubts and all my fears, broken and hurting so many years. Your love made a way. You tore it all away. Ripped the veil in two. The way is open. Better words unspoken. The King of Heaven's holding me. Who came down to rescue me? Amazing love, how can it be?
today, Lord, for the beauty of your cross. If we ever have a doubt about your love or who you are, it's on the cross that you've been revealed to us. And we're grateful today for the love that you have for us. You truly love each one of us as if there's only one of us. And each and every heart in here today is yours. Their life is yours. You created them with purpose. And God, that purpose is going to be found in you. So I pray that as we just continue to journey through life, you'd make more and more of yourself. Just bring yourself into our sight. Help us to know our purpose as we travel through this life. So many things that can distract us, so many things that can blind us. But help us this moment to set our sights upon your cross and your love, to be reminded one more time just how much you love us and how great your love is for us. All the darkness that was once there, all the things that are blinding and keeping us from you are no longer there. We're thankful today for the light of heaven that we have found in Jesus Christ. Light came breaking through. That's what we sing on this bridge. It's a triumph. It's a song of victory. And it's what we have today through our Lord Jesus Christ.
Cross made all things new. Did what only you can do. Love has made a way for me. Here I stand in victory. I came breaking through. Cross made all things new. Did what only you can do. Love has made a way for me. Here I stand in victory. Way is open, better words been spoken. King of heaven's holding me. Bring down to rescue me. Amazing love, how can it be? Way is open, better words been spoken. King of heaven's holding me. Came down to rescue me. Amazing love, how can it be? Amazing love, how can it be?
Nice work, guys. What a great morning. I'd already been encouraged. How about this band today? You guys rocked it, man. Love you guys. Great job. You may be seated. Glad that you're here today. Glad that you're joining us. Honored to have you here today. If it's your first time visiting, I'd like to welcome you. Hope that it won't be your last time. We trust God's leading in your life and guiding in your life, and we're grateful for the way he guides and how he leads people day by day, and also leads people to this church to be a part of it. So we're grateful for that. Thanks, Darb. Man, aren't those guys awesome? I love it. It's great. Mateus is, he was on the guitar today. He's my brother-in-law. And then Jonathan was on the bass today, and he's Meredith's brother. So if you've got any family that can play music, bring him in. Is that Carlton up there? Man, nice to see you, man. Did you move him back to Helena? Okay, that's good enough for me, man. That's awesome. I've been going through a series here in the book of Exodus. I think it's been 40 weeks long. So today it's probably going to be 41. But I'd entitled it Breaking Free when we began it, and I think we're always fighting for areas of freedom and victory in our life. Although we have victory through the Lord, through his cross, his burial, and his resurrection. I mean, Jesus has defeated every foe. He's the undefeated king. He reigns victoriously today. And so truly a victory is ours in the Lord, but we struggle in a lot of different ways as we kind of go through this life, and there's so many different ways we struggle. And the book of Exodus has been, it's been a help to me, and that's why I've kind of stuck with it, of just all these kind of stages almost that we find ourselves in as Christians. Is, you know, the book begins with God's people down in a land called Egypt. They're being treated horribly by a king named Pharaoh. God works all these miracles. You're probably pretty familiar with it. Delivers them out of the hand of Pharaoh. They cross the Red Sea. The Red Sea covers Pharaoh and his army. And then God's people kind of spend this time journeying through this wilderness area where God miraculously provides for them, miraculously cares for them. And now he's setting up kind of this tent meeting, you could also almost say, this tabernacle that is being built where God is going to dwell among his people. And the end of the book of Exodus has a lot to say about that specifically. But what I'm kind of focusing on is what Israel was, and you know, God's people when they were in Egypt and God brought them out and they began to wander, and then they began to have this tent and this worship that was taking place. They're really the first true form of a church in the Bible. And a church is what it is it's just a people that are called out. And that's what you and I are. A church is not a building. And I'd like you to understand this before I forget to say it. Church isn't a service that we provide. I think a lot of people get that mindset, you know. Like church is a service that we're providing. Church is about a body of people. Church is about people, you and me, that are serving people by love, not only in this church, but in our community. The church it's a group of people. The church is not an organization. Although it has an organizational aspect to it, it's a living organism. It's you and it's me. It's called over and over again in the New Testament, the church, which is the body of Christ. So we make up his body. So as you put your faith in Jesus and you believe in Jesus, what happens is you get put in, you could say, to his body here on earth, heaven on earth. And I think there's a lot that works against that. You see a lot of the dysfunction that takes place in church. How many of you guys ever been burned or hurt by church? Yeah, welcome to the club, man. I've burned people and hurt people and been burned and hurt. But you're dealing with people. You're dealing with people that are growing. You're dealing with people that are learning. There's not going to be any perfect pastor. There's not going to be any perfect church. There's not going to be any perfect group of people. There's not going to be any perfect programs. None of that stuff. Every church has its flaws, but the power is really found in it when we're able to kind of come together. We come together today to worship, to meet one another, to meet new people, to some to find salvation in the Lord, some to find just encouragement in their walk, some to be welcomed back, and just so many different things. But our lives we are the body of Christ, not just the people that are in this building, but all who make up the believers, people that believed on Jesus in this world. We are the body. We're the hands and the feet, and we go about serving people. I think a lot of times, I mean, I'll probably be pretty honest during this talk. I'll try not to. If I get a little bit too like I sound like I'm being mean, just throw something at me and hit me. But I'm trying to be honest because I want to get away from the idea of, and I don't want to be a part of even a church that is just looking at itself as a service that is provided for people. You know, a lot of times we come to church and we think, well, what can the church do for me? But what it really is about like, listen, I've been a Christian for this long, and maybe it's time that I do something in the church. Maybe now it's time that I start to involve and invest in God's work. And maybe it's time that I see that God has gifted me to serve and God has gifted me to give. And there's a contribution I can make, and there's something that I have to offer, and there's a part that I can play. So today, the title of my message, and I believe it'll be a help to you. This isn't a plea to get more people to come to Life Church, but it's always to help you see your purpose and meaning in Christ. And today, so what I titled this is Your Part. Your part. Your part. Not my part, your part. And I think what we do a lot in life, you'll see it, is you're able to see other people's part a lot easier. It's kind of like when you're being raised, you can become hypercritical of your parents because you're seeing what you think they should be, their part, but maybe you're not seeing your part in the home or the part that you play. Or we can get on a team, or we can get in a church, or we can get in an office or anywhere in life, and We start seeing everybody else that maybe isn't doing what we feel like is their part. But the reality of it is you want to shrink that thing down to where you can live your life, where you can find yourself in a place where you're able to do your part. And you're able to live according to the gifts and the callings that God has given you. You don't want to live a fear-based life. You don't want to live a life that's full of bitterness and resentment and all these things, because God has gifted you in a special way. And God has gifted you in such a way that what he's gifted you with is only going to be realized and manifested in the church. You know, that last song we sang today is actually a song that I wrote. And it's a little song I wrote, and you might want to sing it note for note, but don't worry, be happy. Nobody in here knows that song. How many know Bobby Mc whatever his name is? Yeah, thank you. But you know what? I was thinking as we were singing that, if and I used to write music all the time and try to write songs and, have the song that I could go sing at the bar where all the ladies would love me, and it just never worked out for me. But I was sitting there singing that today, and I'm not telling you that to be like whatever. I'm just saying that song could only be ever sung in church. Like what God gave me and the way he gifted me and the people that he's put around me, my only avenue and opportunity to make that song happen was to be a part of a church. It wasn't going to happen at a bar. It's not going to happen opening for Pearl Jam. It's not going to happen traveling around America trying to make a name for myself. I mean, I can't sing. My lyrics, it's not like Nashville's calling me. I'm not trying to be a mainstream Christian writer. It's just a song that God put in my heart that I get to share with God's people. But the only way that song gets to be sung is if I'm in church, being and doing what God has called me to do. So it's your part. And there are things that are in you that are only going to come out of you when you're plugged in to God's people and God's work and what God has called you to do. There's no other way it's going to come out. Like maybe I'm a gifted communicator in some ways. When I was younger, I wanted to be a motivational speaker. I took a lot of encouragement from that guy, that motivational speaker that lived in a van down by the river. I can't remember his name. But that guy, some of you got that one too. I'm getting one more person every time I make these references. And maybe I could go around the world, or I wouldn't do that. Maybe I could be a communicator or somebody that could motivate. But really, this stage becomes a place where all I'm doing is living according to the gifting that God has given to me. It's like I kind of just get up here and start opening up my mouth, and it kind of turns some people away and it turns some people to the church. But really all I'm doing is I'm just sharing with you a gift. It's not really like it's something I worked to bring about in my life. It's something that was deposited in me. And so I see the part that I play, and it's not your part, and your part isn't my part. But it is important to understand that you do have a part. You have a part in it all. You have a part in it all, and your part is important. And your gifting, maybe some of the reasons you might feel frustrated or you might feel like your life isn't in the stride it's supposed to be in, is because maybe you're not in the place that you need to be doing the things that you need to be doing, sharing with other people and being encouraged in what God has given you, and sharing that gift with other people, helping the body of Christ, helping the church thrive as it should. I think your part's what's attacked. I think the purpose that you've been given individually is what's attacked. You think about it on a football team, like I thought about it last night, and there's a football team, and I think you got all these guys on the team, and everybody has a part to play, and if somebody's not playing their part or doing their thing, the coach has got to find a sub. But to put it this way, what if you had a football team in the center, all he did is he did this, and he never hiked the ball? Nobody else can play football until that guy does his part, which is this. Hut. What if the guy that got the ball is like, blue 42, Omaha? And he gets the ball, and when he gets it, he just starts to hold it. What if the right tackle just thinks, you know what? I don't have time for these games with these boys. I'm not even gonna show up. I'm not even gonna go on the field today. It's gonna be 10 against 11. There's gonna be a gap where that person should have been, where it's easier for the opponent to get in. But you know what else it's going to do? If you got a right tackle and you got a right guard and you got somebody else, it's been a while since I played football. you know what they have to do? They have to start doing double the work because one man won't do his work. And sometimes when we don't do our part, we're just making people pick up the slack that was meant to be our place. And listen, the right tackle isn't the right guard, and the right tackle isn't the center, and the center isn't the quarterback, and the quarterback isn't the running back, and the running back isn't the receiver, and the receiver isn't the cornerback, and the cornerback isn't the linebacker. Each person has been gifted in a different way to fill in the holes of that team that it requires to function with unity, to function with power, and a team really is as strong as like its weakest strand, you can say, but a team is about people just being able to come together and work together. You would way rather have, if you were getting a team, if I was ever getting a team and I'm ever getting a team of people, sure you look for character. Does a person have character? What kind of a person are they? Are they going to be able to show up? Are they dependable? Are they available? What kind of character do they have? Are they competent? Sure, are they competent? Can they do the job? Yeah, maybe a little bit, but that stuff can always grow. If maybe somebody comes in a little raw, they maybe don't know all the chords on a guitar. Chelsea started to learn to play guitar. She started to lead music, but it's like you can always grow in your competency. But the third thing is chemistry. And I've had people with character, and I've had people that were competent, but they destroyed a team because they could not understand chemistry. And chemistry is the most important thing when it comes to team building. The best churches in America are churches where people have found their place and they can come together as one unit, and there's chemistry there. Chemistry. Sometimes chemistry is what's missing in the workplace. Sometimes chemistry, when your chemistry goes wrong on a team, if you've ever been around team and sports and stuff, if your chemistry goes wrong, the locker room's messed up, the social world is messed up, it's all messed up. It doesn't matter how good the quarterback is. It doesn't matter how good the running back is. It doesn't matter how many MVPs you have on the team. If you do not have chemistry, that team will fall apart. And so what we do is we learn to find our part in the part that we play. And what we have to learn to do is listen to the voice of the Lord, and also just recognize some of the things that we have in our life that we can see that maybe God has deposited there or put there. And also the way we can tell our part is by just looking at how we see the world. And it's you seeing the world the way you see it. And sometimes you just see the holes that are there because those are holes that you were called to fill with your gift. Because those are places you see the world in a special way and in a certain way. And it's those eyes that you have been given and that heart that you have been given that other people may not have that are around you. And so it pushes you out into the world to serve other people in love. You can look at this as your career as well. The reason you fulfilled and went to the career that you chose is not so much because you were looking for a job to do, but you're looking for a calling to fulfill. You want to serve people, you want to serve their needs, and you want to serve their needs in love. And I read that years and years ago. A man said, ministry is nothing more than serving needs in love. And I like that. But in order for a church to thrive and to function the way it needs to function, a team, it doesn't matter, you can use this in every area of life, every person has to be doing their part. And so what the Lord says in Exodus 31 in verse number 1 is he says this, and I love this. The Lord says to Moses, and Moses was a leader, he says this, see, I have called by name Bezalel, the son of Uri, son of Hur, of the tribe of Judah. Man, he didn't call Bezalel's brother. He didn't call his mother. He didn't call his neighbor. He didn't call the guy that Bezalel thought was gifted enough to do it. He called Bezalel. He called this guy. And there's stuff and there's a life that God has called you to. And I probably say this thing the same way every week, man. There's a life that God has called you to that you are the only one that can show up and live. There's a place and a space that you were meant to occupy, you could say, that a life that you have to show up and live that nobody else can show up and live for you. You were called to be their mother. You were called to be their father. You were called to be their grandparent. You were called to do this or called to do that, but it's not about God placing someone else there. It's about God placing and calling you to be there. I've always looked at preaching this way or pastoring this way, and I spoke about it just a second ago, but this isn't a career that I'm trying to pursue. It's a calling that I'm trying to fulfill. And I feel such a strong sense of calling, like God has called me to this place. God has called me to Helena. God has called me to pastor. God has called me to do this. And sure, there's been learning along the way and growing along the way, but it's a call that God placed on me and nobody else. So I can get frustrated about it. I mean, I can do what we all want to do, and I mean, I can quit and I can throw in the towel, and believe me, I try to do that time and time again. Because fulfilling a calling is very, very difficult. But what God does is he calls you by name. He doesn't call somebody else to do what you can do. He doesn't call somebody else to fulfill what only you can fulfill. He calls each and every one of us, and he gifts us in a special way. And he calls you by name. Paul says it this way in Galatians chapter 1, which is in the New Testament, and he was a teacher of the churches. It says, "But when he who had set me apart before I was born." That's why I think that our life is always on a trajectory to find and get in step with the calling that God has placed upon our life. Because before I was born, God had a plan. And my life is really about God directing me and guiding me and leading me to be in stride with that plan. What will keep you out of that plan is doubts, fears, reservations, thinking I'm not good enough, thinking I can't do this. But you can do this because God put this in you. And so it says, he set me apart before I was born, and he called me by his grace. It's not like I was going through life looking for God. It was that God was he was looking for me. He was searching for me. He was seeking me. And he called me in a way where he didn't look at who I was and what I had to offer, but he just called me by grace. He calls you by grace, and he gifts you to do the things you're called to do, but also to be who you're called to be. And it's a call that's by grace. It's grace in the beginning, it's grace in the middle, and it's grace at the end. And says, he called me by his grace. He was pleased to reveal his son to me in order that I might preach him among the Gentiles. I did not immediately consult with anyone. There's a lot in there, man. But I think it says this a lot. God has a purpose for your life. And that purpose is a work of his grace. It's not something you have to perform to get or perform to be. It's something that he calls you. He calls you and he gifts to you. But also that purpose is not going to be found outside of Jesus Christ. It's through the revelation of the Son of God that we begin to see God's purpose and who God has called us and made us to be. And the other thing is immediately I didn't consult with anyone. When you start living according to a calling, you have to start to live dangerously. And I think so often is what happens is if you'd be, I'm the same way. It's like you get something put in your heart. You have a vision that's put in there. You have a tugging that's put in there. You have a nudging that you feel. You have a burning. You have a desire. And then you go to someone and say, hey, I feel like God's asking me to. And they say, and what we do is we might spend the rest of our life going around trying to find the approval for what God's already anointed us for. And if you're looking for other people to approve you, it's probably never going to happen. Trust me. I mean, I do it all the time. But it's called, it's gifted, it's grace, it's Jesus Christ. It's your seeing your purpose, your identity, your eternity, your calling, your life, everything. It's all wrapped up in Jesus. But you can't spend your life trying to go to other people to anoint you when you've already been anointed by God. You've just got to step out by faith and start living dangerously, believing this is what God has called me to do. If you don't consult people before and you're not consulting people about what you're doing or how you're living, then what you risk is facing rejection and ridicule and scorn and being mocked and being laughed at. And nobody wants that. But if you're brave enough, you could say, to step into your calling and occupy the space that God has given to you and not let the voices that are around you or even the voices that are within you trump the voice of God and God's calling in your life, you can live your life from a place of approval, from a place of anointing, and your life is going to be a much more rich and much more blessed because you're not living trying to please other people. You're not trying to please the world. You're simply living in a way that is not only pleasing to God, but it's pleasing to you because it's who you were created to be. And I believe you can live your most authentic life that way. But too often we're fishing for approval. And Paul just reveals to us, he's like, guys, this is a God thing, man. I mean, you don't have to try to figure it out and you don't have to wrap your mind around it. You can just kind of look at it and say, wow, this stuff actually is it's just in me. It's just there. It's like God put it in me. And you begin to find more of it and your desire gets to be fed the more you see and begin to know Jesus. And then you just got to live your life in a way where you're loving the people that might not agree with you, but you're living according to what's found agreement with you in your heart and in your spirit. There's an old prophet in the Old Testament that I really like. His name was Amos. And in Amos chapter 7, this guy just went around and was preaching. He had some pretty tough messages. And Amaziah, who was a priest of God's people, He was one that was, a priest, the go-between, the one that was called to teach and lead God's people, said to Amos, who's the prophet, the preacher, he said, "Oh, seer, go, flee away to the land of Judah and eat bread there and prophesy there, but never again prophesy at Bethel. For this is the king's sanctuary and it is a temple of the kingdom." So what Amaziah says to Amos is knock it off, stop it, quit it. Amaziah was a priest. Amaziah had power. Amaziah had position. Amaziah, in essence, was the church. And Amos was just some guy that showed up on the scene that started to have these messages from the Lord that he was speaking. And Amaziah didn't like it because it didn't agree with his religion or his ridiculousness. And Amos says this in verse number 14, and I love this. He says, then Amos answered and said to Amaziah, "Hey, I was no prophet. I wasn't a prophet's son. I wasn't raised in church like you. I didn't grow up in this stuff." He said, "But I was just a herdsman and a dresser of sycamore figs. But the Lord took me from following the flock, and the Lord said to me, 'Go, prophesy to my people Israel.'" And as Amos sits there, he could have said, "Well, shouldn't I ask Amaziah? He's the priest." You know, sometimes in your life, if you look at it, you're just giving way too much power to one person to determine what you want, what your destiny is. And if you put that choice in the wrong person's hands, breaking free, you're going to live in a prison. Because you will never be able to go until they let you go. So sometimes when you look at doing your part in life, you have to say, like, what do I say when others say stop? Do you know how many times, honestly, guys? I mean, I'm just shooting straight with you. Do you know how many times I've had people tell me to stop pastoring? 2 this week. Do you know how many times I've had people to tell me to stop? Do you know how people tell you to stop? They tell you to stop by quitting coming. They tell you to stop by quit giving. They tell you to stop by the things they say about you, the things they say about you to other people. They tell you to stop by the things they say to your face. What do you say when others say stop? Listen, Amos was in a tough place here. Because if he needed the approval of the religious people to do what he felt called to do, he was never going to be able to do it, because not only would they not give him a platform, but they were going to persecute him for doing it. So when we look at Amos and we look at even Bezalel being called and kind of God putting this stuff in us and these giftings in us and this calling within us and this enabling and all this stuff that God has placed in us, it takes courage to live called. Because when it really comes down to it, how can you prove to someone else that God has called you? I always felt like after our church went through this transition time, and man, it was tough, dudes. And some of you have been with it, and some of you haven't been with it, and that's fine. But I basically thought I was going to change a little bit, and it just completely changed on me. Completely changed because the Lord had really changed my heart from within. And I'm not bitter and I'm not resentful, but I was kind of spit out almost immediately, you know, like. And I'm not trying to be critical, I'm just trying to be honest that the group that I was a part of immediately said, we don't want anything to do with you. Immediately, we don't want anything to do with you. You can't preach in our churches. We can't support you. We got to do all this stuff. And so going through that was difficult because I found in my life that I needed the approval of people a lot more than I thought I needed it. And so I started living from a place of rejection and hurt and like, okay, you know, and then the church does it. I tell this story so many times, but I'm trying to help you understand something just through my story. I'm not making up stuff. I'm not lying. I'm not trying to get you to send me letters of sympathy and all this stuff, but the church goes off and another little church forms, and all of a sudden all this chatter starts to take place that really is about me. You know, I start hearing things in my life all the time like he's of the devil, he's compromised, he's of the world. And I'm not trying to, it's hard to tell your story when it just is what it is, man. And I'm going to tell you something that the church kind of dwindled. Man, I was set, dudes. I was set. Church kind of dwindled. All of a sudden, I have a hard time living. I've been going through, I have major depression that rises up at the same time. Major depression, man. And my body breaks down on the inside, and I'm not out there fighting for myself, and I'm not doing all this stuff, and I'm not trying to chase everybody down and chase all the lies down. But what I'm getting to is what I'm saying is that I always thought that God was going to reveal his approval to me by getting me to a place where every seat is filled. We've been in the Myrna Loy for almost 3 years, and almost every time I do this before church. I used to do this all the time. Oh, is there anybody out there? Oh, my. What am I going to see today? I mean, is it just another, you going to show me one more time that you've rejected me too, Lord? Is there any people out there today? Look at all those empty seats, man. And what I'm telling you is that sometimes it's like, man, I don't care. I never cared about having a big church. I don't care if I have one person here or 20 people here or 200 people here. But I started putting the pressure on myself to get approval for my anointing and what God had called me to do. And I'm telling you, it is absolutely miserable to live in conflict like that. You don't have to prove to the people that maybe you changed in front of, or maybe you went a different direction, or maybe you started to fulfill a call in your life. You don't have to prove to everybody that doesn't agree with you that what you're doing is right. You just have to live in the light of the way that God is leading you and continue to show up with courage and compassion and kindness and generosity, and keep being true to the true you inside of you, and don't look for things on the outside to approve what God has done on the inside. When you live called, it takes courage. If you don't live called, it's not that hard, because you've always got social groups that continue to confirm to you that what you are doing is right. But I want to ask you, is what you're doing called? Are you living according to what you've been called to do? Are you living according to who you've been called to be? I am called to be a husband. I'm called to be a father. I'm called to be a pastor. I'm called to be a Christian. I'm called to be a saint. I am called to be like Christ. I mean, you have a calling upon your life. And in order to live that calling, it is going to take a tremendous amount of courage. And you have to walk through, and you will walk through, and I guarantee you, you are going to go through a ton and ton of rejection. Ask yourself right now, if I was just to do what I felt like I was called to do and believe I was called to be, what would my life look like? What would my church life look like? What would my walk look like? How would my life be different? And then just take 1 second and say to yourself, now who's telling me I can't do that? Is it me? If it's you, then what's stopping you? Is it he? Is it she? Who is it? Living called puts you in the game. It puts you in the arena. Takes you out of the grandstands. You start living your life in a much more full way. It's the only way to live. It takes a reckless abandonment. It takes a tremendous amount of courage. It takes learning to find, okay, how do I cope with being alone when other people aren't giving me the little things that I think I need to keep going on? Exodus chapter 31 and verse number 3, God goes on to say this about Bezalel, and I love it. He says, and I have filled him with the Spirit of God, with ability and intelligence, with knowledge and all craftsmanship, to devise artistic designs, to work in gold, silver, and bronze, in cutting stones for setting, and in carving wood, to work in every craft. I filled him. It's in you. I have filled him with the Spirit of God. God put it in you. It is in you. And listen, that ability, you can look at it and just say, man, if God's given me that ability, I just want to be, if God's made me able, I just want to be available. He's given me the intelligence. He's given me the understanding. I can kind of wrap my mind around how it works. He's given me knowledge, and he's given me vision. He's given me craftsmanship. Like one thing I remember years ago, this is kind of a cool story. I was in Quincy visiting my in-laws. I love it there. It's like my little retreat, my little oasis. And I was sitting on the chair in their living room, and I just said, God, where's all the creative ability? Where's all the creativity in the church? Like, Lord, I want to see creativity. The songs that I sang early on were because there were creative people that were stepping out and writing music they feel like God put in their heart. And I believe God is speaking in this time. So I want to be a part of a church that's creative. I want creative people creating according to what the Creator has done in their heart. I respect the past. I do respect the past, but I don't revere it. Like, I'm not worshiping the past. I am so thankful for the past, but the past was the past because people had respect for the past but could live in the new. And there's always change, and leading and living, and all this stuff is not about trying to take people back into the past, but to take them forward into the future, to take them into hope, to take them into freedom, to take them into life. And if we have a God who is a creator and he creates things, then we as people are gifted to create. We are creators, and I sat there and I said, Lord, I just want people. I want to be a part of a church where there's creativity. I want to be a part of a church where songs are being written. I want to be a part of a church where people they feel free to exercise the gifting that God has given them. And it doesn't matter if they're a man, and it doesn't matter if they're a woman. It's whoever you have gifted, let that gift come through. And we had a girl that went to our church at that time. Her name was Sarah, and I think she texted me like right after that. And she said, hey, Pastor, I just wrote a song. And I thought, bingo. You know how happy I was about that? Super happy. And now we're like, 5 years later, and we're trying to sing songs up here? I would have thought that would have been the beginning of we'd already have 3 albums by now. And it is a process that even when it's not speaking, maybe God was just showing me at that time what could be. And we had to kind of wait, and we kind of had to wait through our seasons. And then one day Chelsea says to me, she says, Pastor, or I don't know what she said to me, Reverend? What do you call me? Jason, thank you very much. And she says, man, I've wrote so many songs. And I love that our church is a place where you can just be you. I'm serious. That is something that once you strip that from people, once they feel like they can only create within the box, it's comfortable for some, but I can't live there. And so you've got to be able to live in a way where you're able to speak the things that you have, and you can't really sit on it, but God has put within you an ability, you could say, to create and bring things to life that aren't there. That's ministry. You know how we'll have kids ministries as things go on? People rising up, giving life to it. Do you know how we have like small group or whatever you want to call it, people getting together, talking about Jesus, doing life together? It's as people rise up and give life to it. It's about people fulfilling roles within the church, not looking to a pastor to serve them, but playing your part in just understanding that church is all about Jesus, and it's about a community of people that are just as broken as you are, just as imperfect as you are, but we are empowered by Christ and we need His grace, and we're not trying to live this thing out like a performance, and we're not trying to live this out as something that needs to be perfect, but we're trying to express the faith that God has given us in the time that God has given us to live, and we don't want to live our lives in the shadows being afraid to be who God has called us to be. And who you've been called to be and what you've been given is only going to be realized through the church. That's true, man. It's in you. And so we have two motivations that can kind of work in our life. We have an extrinsic motivation, and we have something that is intrinsic. We have something on the outside. I make my choices for approval. I make my choices for acceptance. I make my choices for a raise. I make my choices for money. I make my choices to get something on the outside that is going to validate what I feel on the inside. And when we live our lives that way, and in my context, it's the same way. It's like, I'll be happy when I have a church of 300. No, I'm going to be happy when I have a church of 30. Because when I'm serving for the extrinsic stuff, it's when you get there, you look at it and you say, man, I have $1 million and I'm still not full. It's never enough. It's never enough. And that's why God starts on the inside. And we have to learn to live our lives from intrinsic motivation. Meaning that I'm doing what I'm doing because of the values that I have on the inside, because of the desire I have on the inside, because of what I feel like I'm called to do and who I'm called to be. And so I'm not living my life to get things, I'm living my life to give. I'm not living my life motivated by what's on the outside, I'm living my life motivated by what's on the inside, and that is the most fulfilling life to live. And so I've got to look at my life and I've got to be able to say, God, you put this in me. You have filled me with this. It really hit me this week. I'm like, you know what, Jason? You are a need-centered person. You got the great need of the church, and you got the great need of your life, and need. Church needs money. The church needs people. And I'll tell you what, I get crushed under that stuff. I get crushed under that. You know, Corona's been tough, dudes. I mean, I almost went famous on TikTok, but it didn't work out for me. Here I am. We went through Corona, we went through quarantine, you know, things were going great. I kind of felt like as a church we kind of had momentum. I kind of started feeling like I could breathe. I started finding some little bit of more stability financially, and just kind of thought like, okay, everything is good. And right when Corona hit, our giving just went poof. Poof. You know what I did? You know, and I'm telling you this once again to make a point, but my government helped me out. The government helped us out, man. When we got that loan, it helped us keep going. It's not even a loan, it's a grant. But see, a lot of people, what happened when church was done, they felt it's out of sight, it's out of mind, but we still have bills, we still have things that are going, and our thing just tanked. And there's been some little blurps that have taken place within it, but it has been low. Did you hear me get up here every week and say, guys, we really need your money. I can't do it without your money. But no, we really do need your money because we can't do it without your money. That's a reality. That is a need. That is a real need. If you looked at me, do you know how I pay my bills? By giving them money. Do you know how I pay my rent? By giving them money, the same way you do. This church isn't a business, but this church is the way I'm provided for. So if we don't have money coming in, guess who starts to sweat it? Do you have a business? Have you ever had a business where you were trying to run a business and you weren't getting the money to come in to pay the bills? What do? Do you just go home and say, hey, let's say kumbaya, my Lord, about 45 times here and just find some peace? No, what you do is you start to worry about it. And then because of Corona, we're all of a sudden meeting in my living room, and now you can only gauge it by how many people are online, and then we come back into the church, and there's a few people in the church. There's a lot of people in church today because Meredith's family's here. But I start looking at all this stuff, and I start saying, okay, it's clear. It's clear to me now. It's clear to me now, everything that people were saying about me 5 to 6 years ago, it's just taken a lot of time for that ship to come home because maybe I'm just too proud to hear it and I couldn't get it. And now this is just another way that God's going to show me that, this wasn't for you. And so I'm living my life, and all of a sudden it's like, well, now that people are just having trouble in their life and people are facing hardship in their life, that hurts their life, that hurts the church, it hurts the community. People are struggling. I'm not trying to say that like, hey, we're doing great as a church, but you've got to admit with me that the Corona time has been a difficult time for people, and there will be churches that won't make it through it because it is just like an extended stay. And so what I'm doing is I'm sitting there and I'm saying, okay, Lord, what do you want me to do? Do I need to go get a job? Do I need to start working? What do you want me to do? How are we going to pay them bills? What are we going to do? What do you want me to do? You want me to get up and start preaching on tithing every week? What do you want me to do? What do you want me to do? What do you want me to do? And the Lord says, Jason, you have a great need, but you have a greater supplier. And you are so caught up in the need. You are so caught up in the needs of your life. I need to lose weight. I need to eat better. You can't eat better when you got Cheetos in your pantry. Need. And all of a sudden it was like, my God shall supply all your need according to his riches and glory by Christ Jesus. And God has called me and you to live a life of faith. And so I tell you that story to tell you this. I was completely absorbed in the need. Today, I'm completely absorbed in the supply. Great need, greater supplier. That's your life, man. He's given everything in you need to get through what you're going through. And what we do is we focus on the need instead of the supply. The church to me is, yes, we meet needs with love, but it's about the supplier supplying people who are supplied, who supply other people in the community, in the church. We are all being supplied by the Lord, and we all give out of that supply, and we serve out of that supply. And really, that's serving one another, and that's serving in life with love. It's not looking out into the world to give what we need, but it's looking to God, and he begins to supply, and he begins to give to wherever he needs. So I'm not up in my life right now trying to fulfill a career. I just have to say, God, everything's uncertain. I don't know how it's going to go. I have no clue how it's going to go, but I am choosing to live for you. I am choosing to walk with you. I am choosing to fight for Life Church. I'm choosing to continue. I'm choosing to go forward. I'm choosing to believe. I'm choosing to stand. I'm choosing to want to make a difference. I'm choosing to not want to give up. I'm choosing you. God, do what only you can do. Intrinsic, right there. Intrinsic. That means no matter what's happening around me, God's already making a way. And God's already filling me from the inside. So if everything around me falls apart, it's not about the things on the outside that I need, but the one on the inside who I need, who supplies my every need and supplies your every need. And you can do your part because he will supply you as you play your part. And it says this in the next verse, and I love this. It says this as well, and it says, look, and behold, I have appointed with him Aholiab, the son of Ahisamach, of the tribe of Dan, and I have given to all able men ability that they may make all that I have commanded you. So, I'm gifted. I'm called. You're gifted. You're called. You're appointed. You're anointed. So what I want to say, and all I want to say is like, hey, who wants to do this with me? Who are the people that God is placing in this community, even in this church, because you're a gift to me, that we get to do this together? That to me is what it's about. It's not about spectators. It's not about showing up to be served, but it's finding your place and finding your part and saying that we get to do this together. And listen, my teammates know when I'm not on the line when the ball is hiked. Right? Listen, there's people around me that can see that I'm not living according to my calling and my gifting. Our gifts are for the glory of God, and amazing things happen when we are together. Listen, Bezalel couldn't do it alone, but what God said is, I have gifted other people who can do it with you. There are other people that I'm going to bring you together, and we're going to create a place in a space where people can come to know Jesus, where people can grow in Jesus. A church that, like, all I want to do is I want to make church what I want it to be, and then I think other people will be what other people want it to be. Like, I'm excited about Life Church. I'm super excited about it. Like, I get stoked about it, but then I think, well, you're just the leader. You're leading these people. They need a better leader. Well, what if I just start saying, hey, God brought you here. Jason didn't bring you here. This ain't the Jason show. This is about God working in your life and working in your heart, and God has given you something. He's not making us all lords, but he makes us love one another, and you have been given the ability, and the church is such a powerful thing because it's a group of people that aren't being pretentious or based on performance, but are coming together based on the promise of God and the power that God gives us, and we are just living our lives in such a way where we can live according to our gifting and our calling, and we build one another up, and we make God look good. Look at this. I got to read fast. Come on, Leah, turn that next one. Here we go. So watch this. The tent of meeting and the ark of the testimony and the mercy seat that is on it, and all the furnishings of the tent, the table and its utensils, and the pure lampstand with all its utensils, and all the altar of incense, and the altar of burnt offering with all its utensils, and the basin and its stand. Next verse. And the finely worked garments, the holy garments for Aaron the priest, and the garments of his sons for their service as priests, and the anointing oil and the fragrant incense for the holy place, according to all that I commanded you, they shall do. Did you get what just happened there? God says to Bezalel, I've called you, and I've given you a Aholiab, to come serve with you. Where'd all this stuff come from? Was it just those two guys making it all happen? No, because the reality of it is listen, I'm encouraging. I don't care if you go to Life Church or any other church in the world. I want you to be able to show up and give something more than just occupying. You know, just being there. You want to give in a way where you're serving, and you want to give in a way where you're giving. If Bezalel showed up and he said, okay, God's given me all this stuff, but where's all the garments? Where's everything at? Like I could say, you know, I just serve through my piano playing. Yeah, but if somebody didn't give, you wouldn't have any piano to play. It's not serving or giving, it's serving and giving. And the reality of church life is this, I'll be straight up with you. Everything that you do and decide to do, no matter how you choose to live, everything you do, there is going to be no kickback for you. You volunteer your time, and you give without getting, money back at the end of the year from the church or whatever. You get to give based on what God has given you, and that's how God provides, and that's how church works. If the people don't, you could say, submit in essence to the way God has called it to work, which is through grace, through us graciously giving and serving according to what God has given us to do, then the reality of it is, then there is no church. Like, look to the left and look to the right really quick, and is your mom and dad sitting next to you? Nick, yes, they are. But a lot of people think, well, I'll go to church and my mom and dad are going to pay the way. That's not the way you do it. You start to show up with the things that God has given you, and the church begins to thrive when everybody just doesn't look at it like I'm called to serve, because you cannot serve if people do not give. And you say, man, I've got a gift and I just really want to share my voice with the world. Well, somebody else wants it more because they're paying for the place that you get to go every Sunday to share your voice with the world. Does that make sense? It's meaning that for the gifting to take place, everybody has to be giving. The priests have to be dressed. The priests have to be dressed. I used to be ashamed about, like, oh, I'll just go out and work and get my own whatever. But it's through God's people that I am provided for. And when I get to pray with my kids and when I get to talk about it, I get to say, Lord, thank you for everything that you've given to me. But I know it comes through people. It makes me grateful. And God also wanted his priests to look halfway decent. It's not a sin, man. I'm just talking to you about the reality of church life and what it's going to take on your part. If you just show up and do nothing, it's done. Now ask yourself this. This is going to be a hard question. If everybody, this is going to hurt. I'm so sorry. If everybody served and gave like you, how many more Sundays of church would there be? So you start to buy in to the reality that this is where God has placed me. This is the place that God has given me. And I can't live under the notion that the government is taking place of this thing. We are not on government assistance. My pastor is only going to be able to be a pastor if he's provided for by the people. My mom and dad don't give me enough money. And I think what we do is we step into the true reality here where we can rejoice that this is a work of God. This isn't about us. And if I can just step out and put more of it on you because it's in you, then I believe that God's going to continue to do the work through you. Do you know how we have a drum set? Because somebody paid to get that drum set. It doesn't matter how gifted the drummers are. If somebody didn't give, we couldn't have a drummer. You get that? There'd be no seats. There'd be no coffee. There'd be no nothing. There'd be no me. And in Ephesians 4:15 and 16, it says this, and this is it. It says, talking to the New Testament church right here. Leah, you still there, kiddo? That's my daughter. She's like, sew it up, Dad. Rather, speaking the truth in love, we are to grow up in every way into him who is the head, into Christ, from whom the whole body, joined and held together by every joint with which it is equipped, when each part is working properly, makes the body grow so that it builds itself up in love. That's when you're doing your part and I'm doing my part. We are living in a sacrificial way based on God's grace. We understand that what takes place is because I'm choosing to give. I'm choosing to sacrifice something. I'm choosing to honor God. I'm choosing to honor God in my life, with my lips, with the way I give, with the way I serve, with everything. And what happens is if you get one thing out of joint, that body, it just isn't going to be working the same. So it's every part doing its part that allows the body to truly flourish and to truly thrive. And so church, to me, like I said at the beginning, is not a service we provide. If you think it's a service that people provide, you're going to go to every church you go to for the rest of your life and be offended by everything you hear. The church is about people, and you are the people, and God has saved you as a person, and Jesus gave his life for you upon the cross. And he laid his life down sacrificially for us. And the church is something that we want to value. It's where I can not only live and do my part and express my gifts and have a little part I play in that, but it's where people can come to know Jesus. It's where people can come to grow in Jesus. It's a place. It can be a place for my kids. It can be a place for my community. It can be a place where I find friends, or it can just be a place where I go on Sunday and I get encouraged in the Lord. I'm able to worship the Lord, and I'm able to hear the word, and just you're getting something more out of it than you maybe recognize. But the only way that we can continue to be who God has called us to be is if everybody's doing their part. And I know that might not be a reality. But you know what? It's one joint. It's one part at a time where people say, you know what? This is the way God has gifted me, and this is the way God has called me. And the only way that I'm going to be able to share this gift, and the only way that I'm going to be able to share this, is through his church. God's gifted you in a special way. This is not a plea for money, guys. We are not going to pass the plates. What I have said to you is 100% just honest, true, and real. It's not coming from a place of hopelessness. It's not coming from a place of desperation. It's coming from a place of being able to see that the body is not about just Jason. It's about all of us. And God gets to put it together in such a way where we're just living according to who he called us to be. The church becomes something beautiful, and the church, just the space that we get to occupy as Life Church, becomes something beautiful as we are all serving and giving and just doing our part. Somebody here today, I'm going to just tell you straight again, just it helps straight. Somebody in here today gave $50, and somebody today in here gave $0. That $50 is not as able to go as far as it could have. Right? What if this person gave 50 and this person gave 50 or 25? I'm saying when everybody's doing their part and making their part known, everything you do just goes a little farther. If one person gives 100 and 10 people go 0, then that 100 doesn't go very far, does it? But if everybody is just doing their part and giving not because it's what you feel like you have to do, but because of what God has led you to do, I'm just saying the church begins to thrive, and you begin to thrive when you step into your part and start and just look at it like this is a miracle, but I have a part to play in it. I have a contribution I make to it, and this is meaningful to me, so I'm going to show up in my serving, I'm going to show up in my giving, and I'm going to be a part of the body because I recognize that this thing takes me to make it work. And we are thankful to you today, Lord, for the part you've given us to play. Church is a sobering reality because it's something that you've gifted us with. But it's a gift that becomes ours, and we become responsible for it. There's not one person that's going to provide every need for this place. But it's over the years, it's people coming, seeing their part, showing up, doing it week after week, month after month, and year after year, that what we begin to do becomes so beautiful because we are a body of people working together, being built up in love, and being able to share that love with others. Today in your heart, just take a moment and say, you know what? Maybe everything that guy said made me mad. It's just more church talk or whatever. And just say to the Lord, say, Lord, help me see my part in this life. Help me see my part. And then just help me do my part. And help me do it with my whole heart. Because of all you've done for me and all you've given for me, no sacrifice can be too great. I'm choosing to live for you, Jesus. I choose Life Church. I choose this place. I choose this. So in my heart today, show me my part, because that's what I want to do. And I thank you for giving me part in all of this.
my prayer for you as you leave this place today and head out into your regular lives is that you just live according to who God called you to be, that you would use the talents and the gifts that he's given you, and that you would live for him because he died for you. And I pray that you would look to the supplier because he provides all of our needs, not our earthly needs, but the needs of a heaven-centered heart. And my prayer for you is that you would have a heaven-centered heart. So I hope you guys have a great week, and thank you for coming.